Hi everyone, welcome to BISP Solutions. The topic for today under Oracle Tax Reporting Cloud Services is importing and exporting of data in TRCS. So let's begin. To prepare the TRCS application, we load the various types of data in the TRCS application. Namely, we add the book data, which includes the trial balance and the tax return data, the various tax adjustments, the tax account data, including the permanent and temporary adjustments, the tax loss amounts, the credit adjustments for the taxable income, etc., the payments and refunds for the tax roll forward to create the correct provision under the TRCS application, the average number of employees data for the country by country reporting purposes for certain entities which require this type of reporting. But before we load the data in the TRCS application, we will have to ensure that the following conditions are met, such as we have to load the data only to the base members in the dimension. And we have to ensure that the data contains only valid target amounts. And the approval units to which we are loading the data are not already logged, because in case they are logged, we won't be able to input any sorts of data in the application. Also, the trial balance data is generally loaded to the TRCS underscore TB closing movement. And the other book data, for example, the fixed assets depreciation, the tax depreciation can be loaded to the TRCS underscore book closing movement. And in order to import the data in the TRCS application, you must be a service administrator or a power user. So first of all, we are going to see how we can export or extract data directly from the application. And then we will be seeing how we can import data in the TRCS. So the steps in order to export the data from TRCS application is that first we have to go to the home page, click applications and go to overview card. Under overview, we will be getting the option of export data under the actions icon. From there, we can export the data as per our requirement, and the data which is exported can be exported in the .csv, comma delimited format, or .txt, that is tab limited or other delimited characters format. And we can select the intersection, the rows and the columns for which we want the application to export our data for. Let's go to the application and try to export data for a particular entity. Now we are at the interface of the application. First of all, we'll go to the navigator, and from the navigator, we are going to go to the tax provision national cluster. Under that, we have the forms card. So we'll just open the forms. Under forms, we have various folders. From that, there we want to see the income statement by source form, which is under the book data folder. So I want to see the income statement and the data which is there in the income statement. So I'll just open the income statement by source form. And here we will be able to see the data that is currently present at for this particular intersection. That is the point of view. So for the scenario, actual year financial year 20 period is the P12, entity is operations USD, which is LE, that is legal entity 101. Consolidation, we have entity input, jurisdiction is the United States, multi-gap is local gap, currency is entity currency. Then we have the movement. As you can see, the movement has been described as trial balance close, just like we saw in the PPT that all the book data is loaded to the trial balance close movement. So we have the trial balance close movement in this particular form as well. Then we have the data source as manage data, supplemental data, and data input. So under data input, we will be able to input the data that we want for the income statement accounts. So these are the book accounts, the revenue, domestic, and all the expenses accounts as well. So these all are the book accounts whereby we can input the book data if we want. So right now I have a 20,000 USD balance in my revenue domestic account for this particular entity and this particular scenario. And I have a 10,000 USD balance for the cost of goods sold account for this particular entity and a 5,000 balance for project labor cost account. So this can be said as PPM expense. So my net margin in this case will be 5 5,000 is my net income after tax. So I've just have data in three particular accounts, namely the revenue domestic account, the cost of goods sold account, and the project labor account, project labor cost account. So what I will be doing is that I will be exporting this particular POV intersections into a CSV format from the application itself. And then we will be seeing various load methods that we have that the application provides us and see how those load methods import the data into the application. So first we'll be doing it directly and then we will be scheduling it through jobs as well. So now we know what the data is there in the three different accounts. So we have a 20,000 balance in the 41000 account, which is my revenue domestic account. This is the name of the account 41000. This is the alias. So we have the LS. So we have 20,000 balance in the revenue domestic account. Then we have 10,000 balance in the cost of goods sold account. And in the project labor cost account, we have 5,000 balance for this particular scenario, year period, and entity. Now we will be creating an export file for this particular intersection. So let's just go to the navigator. From there, we'll open the overview card under the application cluster. So I'll go to overview. Under overview, we have the actions icon. So I'll drop it down and then we have various options. From there, we have to select the export data option. So we'll just click on that and we will create a new export data file from here. So there are various options which we can select once we open the create export data file. So the first option is that where do we want to export the location where we want to export our data file. So we can either select local file, local system, or we can select the inbox, outbox explorer. That is the server. So first of all, we are going to do it from the local system. Then we will do it again from the outbox inbox folder as well. Then we have the cube option. From cube, we have the four cubes that from which we can select. So I am selecting console right now. The file type also we have three options, comma, delimited, tab delimited, and other option. So we are going with the comma delimited, that is the CSV file. Then smart lists, we have the export labels and export names. We are selecting with the export labels. Then the dynamic members, we can either include them or we can exclude them. So I don't want dynamic members, so we can exclude them as well. Then the slice definition is the most important feature or the option from which we have to select the rows, the columns, and the POVs for the particular data that we want to export. So we just saw the income statement and the POVs that had the data under the revenue, cost of goods sold, and the project labor cost expense account. So what I'm going to do is that I'll select the rows as entity I'll select the column as account, and then I'll select the POV for which I want to view my data. So the period in which the data was stored was P12. The year was FY20. So we are going to select FY20 here. Scenario was actual. View is periodic. Then we have currency, which was entity currency. Consolidation was entity input. Data source was data input, as we saw there. Movement was trial balance close. Jurisdiction was United States. Intercompany was no intercompany. And multi-gap was local gap. So once we have selected all the POVs, now we will have to select the entity member and the account members for which we want to view that or export the data. So under entity, we had the operations USD entity under the North America parent. So we'll select the operations entity. And from account, we will select the three accounts which had the data at the intersections. So the first account was the revenue domestic account. So we'll just select the revenue domestic. The second one was the cost of goods sold account. And the third one was the project labor. So we'll try to export the data for all these three accounts. So once we have selected all the row, column, and POVs, we'll just click on export. And we can see here that a zip folder containing the CSV file, the exported file, is created. So we'll just open the file and see what data is there. So as we saw in the data form, we have the amounts 20,000, 10,000, and 5,000 respectively for these three accounts. And the POV is set here. Now, this is the whole process for exporting the data from the application directly. The second thing that we need to do now is that we will be seeing the importing of data into the application from this particular CSV file. That how we can import the data into the application from a CSV or a TXT file. We'll use the same CSV file that we have exported from the application, and we'll change the data in this file so that we can keep a track of the data. As we know right now that we have this data, the 2010 and 5,000 in these particular accounts. So we will be loading some different data into these particular accounts, and then we will see the result in the application from the income statement by source data form, so that we can get an understanding of how we can import data, and we will also see the different load methods that we have in the application. So we'll just go to the slide again. So here are the steps for creating the import file and how we can import the data. So in order to import the file, we will be loading the data into the import file for each artifact, namely the data, smart lists, and exchange rate tables. In our case, we are importing the data itself. Then we will begin the loading by going to the application and selecting the file format which we want to import and clicking on the various options that we have. So the load method options will be shown when we are importing the data. So there are various load methods which are available for loading a data file into the application. So the first option that we have is the merge option, which we'll be seeing. So in case we select the merge option, the merge option is used to override the data which is present in the application with the data which we'll be loading through the load file. So each record in the data load file is imported into the application, and it will replace the old value in case there is any old value. Then we have the replace option. So the replace option is used to replace the data in the application. So in replace mode, what will happen is that the entire data for a particular scenario, year, period, and entity dimensions, in case we are loading, so the rest of the data which was already there in the particular scenario, year, and period, and entity dimension will get eliminated and the new data will get loaded. However, in case of merge, in case we load a particular data in the scenario, in a particular scenario, year, period, entity combination, the data in some other accounts, in case it was there, which we are not loading through our data file, will remain intact and will not get eliminated or deleted. However, in case of replace, the entire data in each and every account which was there for this particular SYPE combination will get eliminated. However, that will not be the case in case we select the merge option. The rest of the data which we are not loading will stay intact. So we'll see this with the examples that we have created. Then there are certain three types of accumulation types that are there, which will be used in combination with the merge and replace option. So the first accumulation type is the none type, whereby each record on the data import file replaces the existing value in the database for the record. So in case we select a merge with none and or a replace with none, the data which we are importing will replace the existing values in the database. Then we have the with database option, whereby in case we select it with either merge or replace, the data will be added to the existing value of the cell. And these accumulation types will not override the merge and replace function. So the merge and replace will function as per their functioning or their functionality, and the accumulation type will be in addition to the merge and replace functions. Then the last accumulation type is the within file. So this will accumulate the cell values that are within the file. So we'll be able to understand this much better when we do the examples for the same. So these various combinations which can be used to load the data. So we have the merge with none, replace with none, merge with database, replace with database, merge within file, and replace within file. So we'll try to use all these combinations one by one while importing the data into the application. So, and we will do it with the same CSV file that we have exported from the application. So for this, we have created a certain load file that we want to input. So this is the view of that particular load file which we want to create here. So what we want to do is that we want to input two rows. So I have selected two rows for entity. So I'll just select two entities here, not two entities, and the entity is same. I will just copy down the entity, legal entity 101 in the row 3, and we will input a different amount. say 25,000 and 5,000 for revenue and cost of goods sold respectively. And we'll also change the data that was earlier there, which was 20 and 10,000 for these two accounts, to 10,000 and 15,000 respectively. And as you can see that in this particular load scenario, which we don't have any data to be input under the project labor cost account. So what we will do is we won't be we won't be adding any data under this particular account, which is the 59110 account. So we will just eliminate this particular column, and we will be having the load data for only two accounts, which is the revenue and the cost of goods sold account. Another thing that we'll have to do is that we'll have to copy this point of view for this particular row as well, and copy the cube name as well. Now I can again eliminate this data from here. So this was just an image of the data which I wanted. Now I have created the data file for these particular columns, and I have two rows of data in these two accounts. So I have not input the total of 35,000, which I could have input in the first row itself, and 20,000 in the first row itself for the cost of goods sold account, but I have input them in two different rows. So we have two different rows for the same account. And now, one by one, we'll see what output this import file provides us in the application when we import it into the application with different load rules, which we just learned about. So first we are going to try it with the merge and none, and we'll see what output the application provides us with this particular import file. So for importing the data file, first we are going to save this data file. So we are going to save it. You can save it in any folder. So this is my data load LE101 file, legal entity is E101, and we have saved the file in the CSV format. Now we are going to go to the application. We are going to close the export page, and again in the application under overview, we are going to select actions, and under actions, now we are going to import the data in the application. For that, we'll open the import data page and click on create. Now again, it's asking for the location. So the location is the local system. Source type is can be default or SBase. File type, we have the CSV file, which is the comma delimited file. So I'm going to select it as comma delimited itself. Then under the import mode, we have the two options which we were just talking about, which is the merge and the replace option. So we are going to select merge here. And again, under accumulation type, we have three options: none, with database, and within file. So first of all, we are going to try it with the none as accumulation type. Source file, I'm going to choose from the local system. And I'm going to load it in the application by clicking on import. Import data job submitted successfully. So once we have imported the data, what we are going to do again is that first we are going to see the jobs, whether the import data is successful or not. And then we'll check the data form and the respective accounts in which we have loaded the data, whether the data has changed for them or not. We are going to see the forms. Here we go. So as you know that the last data that was present in the revenue domestic account was 20,000, as we have written it here. This was our base data. And for the cost of goods sold account, which is the 51100 account, the data was 10,000, which has now changed to 5,000, and the revenue domestic is now changed to 25,000 from 20,000. And the project labor cost, which was 5,000 even before the import file, is still the same, is still 5,000, because we have not loaded any data for this particular account. And why it is 5,000 still? Because we selected the option as merge. In case we would have selected the option as replace, it would have eliminated each and every account which was there, each and every data in each and every account which was there for this particular SYPE combination. And it would have inculcated only the data which we would have loaded through the import file. So we'll be seeing that case as well. But right now we'll try to analyze this case. So what happened is that it has taken the data as 25,000, and in my load file, the total of the 41,000 account, which is the revenue domestic account, comes to 35,000. So why has it taken the second row only? And why is not taken the full 35,000? So what we selected was the accumulation type was selected as none. And because of that selection, what this did into the load process is that it did not accumulate, it accumulate the data which was there earlier in the application, which was 20,000, and neither it accumulated the data which was within the file. So within the file there were two data rows. One was 10,000 and the other one was 25,000. But since we selected the accumulation type as none, it selected, or it loaded the latest data, which was 25,000, or the last row of data, which was 25,000 and 5,000 respectively. And it did not accumulate it. Since we selected the option as none, it did not accumulate it with the other data rows. So if we see the explanation of the merge and none option, we can understand that in case we set the accumulation to none, the last record in the load file will be loaded and the data will not get accumulated. And the remaining data which was present in the database, in our case, the project labor cost expense account of 5,000, will remain intact. That is, it will remain the same and will not get deleted or eliminated, since we did not load any data for that particular account. Now again, we'll go to the application and we will again create the same amounts in the accounts which were there before the loading of the data, so that we can test them, test the output for each and every load method. So 20,000 was my balance in the revenue account before the import file. 10,000 was in the cost of goods sold, and in the project labor cost, it's 5,000. So because it hasn't changed. And after changing the data, I'll just click on save. Now, once done, we'll again come to the application overview and now try to load the data with a different load method, which is replace and none. So we'll again go to actions. We'll open the import data. We'll create the import data process. And now what we will do is that we'll just change the import mode to replace, and accumulation type is set to none. And again, I'll choose the data file the data load LE101 CSV file and import again. So once this is done, we'll again go back to the form. Now you can see that again, since we selected the accumulation type as none, it did not accumulate the two data rows. It took the last data row, which was, or the latest data row, which was 25,000 for the revenue domestic, and it took 5,000 for COGS. However, the only difference that you can see now is that the project labor cost expense account, which was earlier present while we were using the merge and none option, is now eliminated or replaced for this particular scenario, year, period, and entity combination. In fashion, in case there would have been data in other accounts, say the project usage cost, the miscellaneous cost, or any other account would have had any sorts of data, when we would select the replace with none option, or we will select the replace option, uh, let alone with none accumulated or within file, the replace option will replace or will delete. It will not replace, it will eliminate or delete all the data except the data which is loaded through the import data file. So this was the output with the import, replace, and none option. So we'll just read the synopsis. Since the accumulation is set to none, the last record in the load file will be loaded and data is not accumulated. But the expense amount, which was the project labor cost, is now eliminated as replace option deletes all the data which is present in the database with the particular SYPE combination. Now we'll move on to merge with database and other load options. But before that, we'll again change the data to the original data that was there, 20,000 in the revenue domestic, 10,000 in the cost of goods sold, and 5,000 in the project labor cost, and just save it again. So one by one, we'll see all the load methods in this manner. Again, we'll go to the application overview. We'll select import, create the import file, and the only difference that we will create this time is we'll take the merge with database option and again try to load the same data. So since we have selected the accumulation type as within database, so whatever data that is present or that was present in the accounts earlier before loading the import file will get accumulated or will get added with the data which was there in the database. We'll again go to the data form. See now, what is happening here is that the 20,000 which was already there before the loading of the import data file and the 35,000 which we loaded. So 35 and 20 amounts to 55,000 USDs. So once we select the merge with database option, it will merge all the accounts and accumulate it within the with the database accounts as well. So what it does is that it totals the 55,000 under the revenue account. Similarly, in the cost of goods sold, 20,000 we loaded and Before the loading, it amounted to 10,000. So 20 plus 10 amounts to 30,000, and it has accumulated within the database. There was no amount in the project labor cost account in our data load file, so it remains intact at 5,000. So we can see the synopsis again. Data will be added to the data already in the database as accumulation type is selected as with database, and rest of the data will remain unchanged as merge is selected. In our case, the project labor cost account. The next one will be similar to the merge with database. The only difference will be that the project labor cost account now will get eliminated. So we'll just try it again, but before that, I'll change the data one more time. So this was 20,000 and the cost account is 10,000 and save. Now we'll try the same load file with the replace and none option, replace and with database option. We'll again create it and select replace with database and select the data file. We'll again go to the data form and see whether the project labor cost account is getting eliminated or not. So what this does is that it replaces all the data accounts which were present before the data load file. So it totally erases the data. Since we selected replace, it totally eliminated the data which was earlier present in the application. So it eliminated the 20,000 or the revenue domestic. Since it was a replace, I uh, have explained that the replace option replaces or eliminates the entire data which was present in the SYP combination. So it has eliminated the 20,000 here, and it has loaded the 35,000 that was there in the import data file. Again, it has eliminated the 10,000 which was there in the cost of goods sold, and it has loaded only 20,000. And since nothing was loaded under the project labor cost account, the entire 5,000 is eliminated. So when we use the replace with database option, what will happen is that the data will be added to the data already in the database as accumulation type is selected as with database, and the rest of the data which was already present in the database is eliminated as replace is selected. So the data which was there in the file will be loaded, but the data which was there in the database earlier, the entire database will get eliminated for this particular SYP combination, and the data in the file will get accumulated. The next option, and before that, we'll again change the input. Now we will select the merge with file option first, and then we'll do with the replace with file. So we have the merge and we'll select within file. So this time the accumulation type is within file. So it will not add the data which was there in the database. It will just accumulate the data which was there within the file. So what it did is that it accumulated the data which was within file, which is 35,000 for the revenue domestic account and 20,000 for the cost of goods sold account, which we can see here. And it did not replace or eliminate the 5,000 since we selected the merge option in this particular case. Now, again, we'll once again change the data to the earlier amounts and do the last load method, that is the replace with file method. We'll just go through the synopsis again. Merge within file. This option will accumulate the data which is present in the load file, remaining all the data in the database for the SYP combination will remain the same, which was project labor cost in our case. Now we are going to see the last option, which is the replace with file option. So again, we'll create the import replace within file this time, and we'll select the data file and click on import. And again, we'll see what is the status of the data form. So again, since the accumulation type was selected as within file, it has accumulated the total of the two rows for the revenue domestic account as well as the cost of goods sold account. However, the only difference is that it has replaced or eliminated the entire project labor cost account since it was not present in the import data file. And in this way, we can see here that this option will accumulate the data which is present in the load file. Remaining all the data will be deleted as replace is selected. So now we have seen all the load methods for loading the data in the application directly. Now the second method that we are going to try today is the loading of the data by creating or scheduling a job. So for creating a job, we'll go to the application overview again. And from here, what we are going to do is instead of directly importing the data, we are going to go to the inbox and outbox explorer and load the data file in this particular explorer. So we load the or upload the same data file from which we have loaded the data till now. So I'm just going to select it and upload it. So what happens is that now the data file or the import data file gets loaded to the inbox and outbox explorer. That is the server. I'm just going to refresh it again and close it. And again, I'll select on import data this time, and I will be creating the import data from the inbox location. I can select any import mode. All the load methods will be working similarly as it did in the direct loading method. So I'll just select merge with database so that we can just see that the source file. For the source file, I will have to provide the exact name of my file. The name of my file is data load le101. Data load le101 .csv. Also, you'll have to keep in mind that you will have to provide the extension, exact extension. And then we'll just click on save as job. Here we will have to give the job name. So job underscore data load. And we also can provide the name of the error file in case any error occurs and click on save. So my job has now been saved. So I'll just close this import data tab. And here I have the jobs icon. Let it be, we'll go to the jobs from the home page. So we'll go to the home page. We'll click on application. From application, we have the jobs card. So we'll open the jobs card here. From the jobs card, we have the schedule jobs option. We'll click on schedule jobs. Here we have the import data. What type of job is this? This is the import data. So we'll click on import data. When do you want to run this job? We want to run this job now, or else we also have an option to schedule the job. So we can schedule it for any time. We have various time zones for that particular time zone. We can schedule it as well. But right now we'll just click on run now and select next. Here we will see all the jobs which are there for loading the data. So my job was job underscore data load. I'll select it and click on next and just finish it. So once this is done, we will again go to the forms and check that whether the data has been loaded or not. As we selected the merge with database option, so the entire data, including the data which was already there in the database, will get added and totaled with the file that we have loaded. So the job data load, as you can see, is now completed 9 seconds ago. We'll open the form again. And here now we can see that the data is loaded and totaled with the data that was already present in the application. So earlier it was, I forgot to change the data to 20,000. It was 35,000 from the earlier load, and it added the 35 again. So it gets total to 70,000. And in case of 5, that is the cost of goods sold account, it was 20, which was from the last data load, and it again got total with 20. So it became 40,000. And the project labor cost was eliminated since we selected replace in the last option. That's why there is no project labor cost. So in this manner, we learned about importing and exporting the data directly from the application overview tab. Now the next method through which we can load the data into the application is through the data management tool that is inbuilt in the application. So it is a common comprehensive cloud-based integration tool which is available for all the EPM cloud business processes except the narrative reporting and the enterprise data management tools. Rest it is available for all the Oracle EPM applications. Data management enables the tax administration to set up, configure, and load the data into the tax reporting business process. Then we have the steps to load the trial balance data from Oracle ERP application into the tax reporting application. The steps comprises of loading the getting the trial balance data from the ERP source system first. Then we will work in the data management tool to integrate the trial balance from the ERP and load the data into the DM. Then the data from the DM will be loaded into the tax reporting business process. So this DM tool the data management tool acts as a kind of bridge between various ERP applications and the EPM applications. So the steps to load the data into the tax reporting are listed below. So the first step would be to register the source system. So the source system can be Oracle ERP Fusion, or it can be a CSV file as well. So we can load the data through a CSV or a TXT file as well. So there are various options for the source system as well. The first step is to register the source system. Then we will have to register the target application, which is the TRCS application in our case. Then we will create the import format, the format in which we want to import the data into the data management tool from the file or from the Fusion application. Then we have to define the location. Basically, to it will help us to load the data and to identify the location of the data. Then we'll have to we can also define the period to which the data pertains. Then we can define the category We can then define the mappings for the data load. So we can also provide multi-dimensional mapping, multiple dimensional mapping, or like-to-like mapping in the data management tool. Once we are done with the mapping, then we can create a load rule for the particular format and run the data load rule to import the data from data management into the TRCS application. So we'll go through one practical example of loading the data from a file to the TRCS application. So we can access the data management tool from the TRCS application by moving to the integration cluster and going to the data management card. So once we click on data management, it will open a different tab for the data management tool. So this is the interface for the data management tool. We have workflow and setup here. First, we'll have to go to setup. Under setup, we have the register, source system, and target application option. So first, we'll register our source system here. We can add a source system. So we can provide the source system name here. We can provide the description. Then there is the source system type. Under source system type, we have four options. One is the NetSuite application, one is Oracle HCM Cloud, and the other one is Oracle Cloud, and the last one is the file. So right now I want to register my source system as file, but I already have one file registered here, so I can use that one as well. So I'll just click on cancel and I will select on file and click on save. So this will be my source system for this particular data load process. Now I'm going to the target application. Under target application as well, we already have certain target applications registered. And in case we want to add a new target application, we can click on add. There are four options. So we have for metadata, we can select the dimensions to load the data. From cloud, in case we want, we can do it. And from local system, if we want, we can provide the target as the local system as well. So already the TRCS cloud has been selected, and I'll just click on TRCS and click on save. So my source and my target have been defined now. The next step here, as we saw in the presentation, is the import format creation. So import format, we'll have to create a new import format for every data load. So we'll just click on add. We'll give a name to the data load process. So it is DM data load, and we'll have to describe the source, which is file. The target is TRCS, which is correct. File type. Now I am selecting the file type as delimited numeric data with delimiter as comma, because I have a CSV file. I'll just show you the file that is there for loading the data through DM. I'll just open the file. I have a TXT file, not a CSV file. I have a TXT file which is separated by comma, that is delimited by comma. And I have the data for LE101 for this particular account, and this is the data amount. So we'll try to create an import format for this particular data load file, which is the numeric data, and it is separated or delimited by comma. And I'll just save it. I will need to remember the name of my import file, which is DM data load, as I will have to provide mappings for the import format. So the mappings will be as per the columns which are present in the data load file that we have, the txt file that we have. So account, I'll just copy and paste to the source column. So we'll again go to the data txt file. Account is present in the second column, so I'll have to provide the field number as 2. Then I'll copy the amounts. So amount is present under the third column, so I'll just give the field number as 3. Configuration, I don't want to provide it here because it's not a dimension or a member. The data source, we'll just give the field number later on. Entity I have in the first column, so I'll just give it 1. From currency, again, I'll select and provide here. Then identifier is not a dimension, so I can leave it. Intercompany is a dimension, I'll have to select it. Then jurisdiction again is a dimension under TRCS, so we'll have to select it. Movement also, and multi-gap as well. So once we have copied all the source columns, we will have to assign a field number to the ones where field number has not yet been assigned. So we can provide any field number from 1, 2, or 3 to these particular members. So I'm providing 3 to all the members. Expression, we'll keep it as blank. We'll look at it in the data load mappings. So once we have done this, we can just click on save, which will save our import format. So there is some error. We'll just go back and open the format again. So this is my format. I'll again try to provide for it. So account was the second. Click on save. Amount is the third one, and again click on save. Configuration, I can just provide it here, but I will not select field number for same. Data source, I can provide 3 again. Entity is in the first column, so I'll select 1. From currency, I can select the third column for that. Again, try to save it, whether it's so we'll try to do it one by one. Data source is 3. So we'll just try to restart the DM. It's showing some sort of error. So we'll again open the DM. And try to map the import format. So we'll again go to setup, import format, and we'll go to data load again and try to input the data. We'll try it one more time, and in case it does not work out, we have a particular import format ready to show you the output for that as well. So we try to input the respective figures in the source format. First one was entity, so I'll again try to save it. So now it fetched the data. I'll again select configuration and map it to field number 3. Then I'll select data source and again map it to 3. Click on save. Okay, so the rest of the members also we'll try to do in a similar fashion. Click on from currency, which is 3. The identifier is again 3. Then we can map the intercompany. So basically identifier and configuration are not the dimensions. So it would have worked in case we would have left them as well, but there were some errors in the instance. So we are just selecting them as well. There's no issue in selecting them also. We can eliminate them or we can select them as well. While creating the mappings in the data load mapping, we will provide a like-to-like mapping for them. So we'll save the multi-gap as well. So my import format DM data load is now created. Once done, we can go to the location and create a new location. So LOC DM data load, and the import format, we'll map it with the location, which is DM data load. My source is file, my target is TRCS, and I'll just click on save. So once the location is done, we'll just move to the workflow and create the data load mapping for this particular import file. First, once we move to the data load mapping, we'll have to select the correct location. So the location, we'll reset and search the location, which is LOC DM data load, and click on OK. The period which I want, I can select it from here. So I'll just reset the period to 31st December 2020, and category is actual. So I'll just click on OK. And now I'll provide the mapping for my particular data load. So I just provide the like to like mapping, which is the exact same value in the source, the exact same value I want in my target application. And rule name can be provided as well. Then we have the configuration. So no need to add into the configuration. Can leave it. Then we have data. And the data we'll provide the explicit mapping. Whatever data is there in the source, I want the same in my target. Then we have the data source, which is managed data. It is pre-seeded or pre-coded. Then we have the entity. We'll have to provide the like-to-like mapping again here and provide the rule name. Rule name can be anything which we want as per our requirements. And they will be from currency, which again will have to be provided for. The next one is the identifier, which we can leave. Intercompany will be defined as no intercompany, FCCS underscore no intercompany. Then there is jurisdiction, which is no jurisdiction in our case. Movement will be no movement, as is preceded. Multi-gap is local gap, which is also preceded. So we just save it and go to the data load rule option. So again, we'll have to create a data load rule, DLR data load DM. Category is actual, and file, I will just select the file But before the file, I'll have to provide for the import format. The import format is the DM data load. I'll click on OK. I'll select my file. So I'll select my file from the local system. And once selected, I'll just click on OK. And then we'll just save the data load rule. It is now saved. Once the data load rule is saved, we can execute the data load by importing the data from source, exporting it to target, and the rest import mode and export mode can be set as per the requirements. Then we'll run the data load rule. The result now can be seen in the data load workbench. So we are through till validation. We'll see whether the export gets completed or not. For that, we'll just click on refresh. So now you can see that in the data load workbench, we have got 3 orange fishes, which means the data load process is now complete. So this is my staging area. And since the export has also got the orange fish, which means the data load is successful to the TRCS application. Now what we can do is that we can check the data. So the data was 4 lakhs, 7 lakhs, and 1,26,000 under these 3 different accounts for this POVs. So we'll just go to the application again and try to create a grid for this particular intersection and check whether we can see the data or not. So we'll just go to the data forms and open the new grid here. My cube is console. So I'll just select console. And here I'll provide the different POVs on which we have loaded the data. So my view is periodic, currency was entity currency, consolidation was entity input, data source because it was DM. So always the data is loaded to the managed data option, which is here. Movement was no movement, I guess. Yeah, it was no movement. Then jurisdiction is US, or it was no jurisdiction in my case. So I'll select no jurisdiction. Then intercompany again was no intercompany. Multi-gap was local gap. Year was FY20. Period was P12. Name of the entity LE101. Account was 41,000. The second entity again was LE101. The account was 51100. The next account was 52110 and entity was again LE101. So I'll try to refresh the POVs. And now you can see the data has been loaded into this particular intersection through the data load file under data management. So these were some of the ways in which we can load the data into the application. Hope you've learned something new. That's it for today. Thanks for listening.